Geek Therapy Radio.
Welcome to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast. I am your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. I'm in a different room right now here at the radio station. I'm in the sports studio. This is where we broadcast the Rockets and the Astros games and other sporting events, but mainly Rockets and Astros from. I'm training a new hire board op, and the boss came in, Justin, said, hey, just let him go by himself. You can sit back in this room and do whatever, but just kind of shadow him, monitor what he's doing, and make sure he's all right. So Kent is doing just fine in the other room, but either way, if it sounds a little different, I'm in a different studio. Welcome to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast, regardless. So later on in the podcast, I'm going to bring up the C word. We're going to talk about the C word a little bit. I know people are tired of hearing it, but I'm just going to... I have to touch on it. I have to at least touch on it and give my 2 cents and kind of give you some information, but not in regards to are we all going to die or anything like that, but more how it affects the market, how it can possibly affect our geek things, so to speak. Our hobbies, are the prices of our hobbies going to go up? How does it affect our hobbies? How does it affect our geek thing? So we'll talk about that later, but first I want to get to some stories of interest before we get to the meat and potatoes, as I am one to say here. So first, it's one thing I'm very excited about this. Lego and Nintendo have officially teamed up for a new Super Mario Lego game. Now, hold on. This isn't going to be like Lego Batman or Lego Star Wars. It's not going to be something you're going to play. I almost said on the Nintendo Wii. It's not going to be something you're going to play on the Switch. It's nothing like that. It's not software based, but it's a physical, from all accounts, this is a physical Lego set that has smart pieces, and it's officially licensed by Nintendo. It's a Mario game. Kind of think about kind of like a board game, except you build the levels, the Mario levels. It sounds even better as I keep saying it. Building Mario levels with Lego bricks, and you have this interactive Mario that it doesn't sync with your phone or any sort of screen that you might have, but the actual Lego man, in this case Mario Lego man, has screens built in, so his eyes and his chest has screens built in, and as you play the levels for real physically and you jump on a coin or jump on a Goomba or something like that, it makes all the noises. Mario makes all the noises you would come to expect Mario to make, and it looks awesome. It's supposed to come out, we think, I say we, the community thinks maybe sometime in August, but before the end of the year. I would imagine in any case it's going to come out before the holiday season, possibly between, I don't know, $10 and $100, $10 for individual pieces, maybe $100 for a set. We don't know. Lego can be quite expensive, but I think on average this is going to cost about the average of a normal game. Let's say if you buy an officially licensed Nintendo game on the Nintendo Switch, that's usually about $60. So that's what I'm going to guess, is it's for Nintendo fans who buy games already. They're probably going to price it as much as existing games on the Nintendo Switch. So my guess is going to be in between around $60 or so, but under $100. We'll see about that. What I do want to do here is play, it's going to be the audio. Going to play the audio from the official release trailer for the game. It shows children playing this. They look maybe between, 9 and 10 years old, somewhere around there. Adults are going to play this. If I get my hands on one, I'm going to play this. I know my buddy, who already loves Nintendo and already loves Lego and has everything Lego, is going to get this. So it's going to be adults playing this. But I'm going to play the audio from the official trailer. I will include link, of course, since this is a podcast and you can't see what I'm playing here. I'll include the link to the video below in the podcast description for you to see. But let's play that trailer now. The trailer for the Mario Lego interactive set.
go Mario time! Here we go!
So cool. Did you catch the clicks? Click, 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 click. The snaps of the Lego. Oh, that's going to be so neat. So as I mentioned before, there are screens in the actual Mario Lego man. So his chest as he collects a coin or as he jumps on a Goomba or hits his head on a block or stomps a block, whatever Mario does, it's displayed. Pertinent information is displayed on his chest, and his eyes appear to blink and do all sorts of things. Oh, it's unclear if it Bluetooths into anything. I almost hope that it doesn't. I think there's so much stuff. Just because Bluetooth exists doesn't mean we have to have everything hooked up through Bluetooth. Now, it's not going to be the end of the world, of course, if there's some sort of score tracking or some sort of interactive feature that does pair to a smartphone or a tablet, if there's a companion app to this. But I'm kind of hoping, if that makes sense, that it doesn't. If it's its own standalone thing, less things to worry about. Remember back in the day, these type of interactive games have existed for a while, and I'm thinking of a Sega game. There was a game for the Sega Genesis. Was it a game show game? Why am I leaning towards a sports game? But it had a companion, plural, companions, VHS tapes, and you were supposed to play the video game and then play the video cassette tape at certain times and then advance through the game. They had codes back and forth. See this code on the VHS tape, enter it in the video game so you can advance in the video. It was a friggin' nightmare. It was a grand experiment. It wasn't good. So we've always had these kind of companion games in the real world and with the companion videos or companion apps. I'm just saying that I hope that the Nintendo official licensed Lego Mario interactive set doesn't have a companion app. Am I alone on that? Let me know. geektherapy@iheartmedia.com, or let me know on Twitter. That's a really good place to get at me instantly, is just follow me on Twitter, Geek Therapy Radio on Twitter, and then let me know what you think about the Mario Lego interactive playset. Do you think it should have a companion app? Will you be heartbroken if it doesn't have a companion app? Very interesting. So anyways, that's very, very cool. And again, look out for that. We think maybe possibly around August, and we think theoretically under $100. Lego sets can be quite expensive. Anybody who collects Lego knows that Lego sets can be quite expensive, but I think it's going to be around $60 or so. On average, the price of an average Nintendo game on the Switch. Okay, moving on. So I'll just quickly mention as we move on here that Tesla has produced its 1 millionth vehicle. It is quite a milestone. It took over around a decade or so to produce their 1 millionth vehicle. It was the new Tesla Model Y, their little mini SUV. It's going to be like the Model X, but with no gull-wing doors, kind of a smaller, mini SUV. What do you call those? Mini compact SUV. Anyways, it looks neat. I'm not a big fan of SUVs, as I've mentioned many times on the podcast before. I'd much rather have a station wagon or an estate car, as you would call it in other parts of the world. Just my daddy wheels would be a station wagon with a fast engine up front. I would like to steer clear of SUVs for as long as possible. That said, if someone wanted to give me a free Model Y, you know what? I wouldn't be complaining. Model X, I would rather have a Model X because, gull-wing doors. I already have a DeLorean. It would fit the motif that I'm going for. with my vehicles. So anyways, millionth vehicle is the Tesla Model Y. For Tesla, it took them, like I mentioned, around a decade or so to produce 1 million vehicles. The interesting note about that is Tesla projects, and analysts project, that its 2 millionth vehicle will come within the next couple years or so. So where it took about 10 years to produce 1 million vehicles, now Tesla is on track to produce another million within the next couple of years. That's great. Good news for Tesla on that front. You know, all props to Tesla. I know Elon Musk gets himself into hot water, and that's an understatement here and there. He's a very eccentric billionaire. But in terms of what Tesla is doing, that's great. I think there's it gets a little weird, the cultish following with Tesla. I'm not saying that they're not bad products or anything like that. Teslas look great. I've never actually been able to drive a Tesla, so I'm not commenting on any sort of commentary on the quality of it all. But the cult following, like the worship of Tesla, is what kind of weirds me out. But I don't want to go too far down that tangent. I've spoken to that effect before on Geek Therapy Radio. Let's move on to the next subject before we get to the C word. The next topic up deals with exoplanets, specifically an exoplanet discovered that's called WASP-76b, WASP-76b. It has a mass about the same as Jupiter, but it's twice as big, has a radius twice the size, or a diameter twice the size of Jupiter, and it orbits so closely to its sun that it completes an orbit in 1.8 Earth days. It takes 365 days for Earth to orbit our sun. It takes this planet that is the mass of Jupiter and twice as big as Jupiter, 1.8 days to orbit its sun. And scientists theorize that the atmosphere of this planet, there's so much going on in other layers of the atmosphere, but at least one layer of this atmosphere of WASP-76b has liquid iron rain. Liquid iron rain. I just love, if you're a geek like me, and I imagine a lot of you are, I like to close my eyes and scare myself sometimes at night, wondering what it would be like if I could visit that planet and be impervious to the effects of that planet. I like to do that mental exercise and just imagine myself there in this dark, pitch black kind of atmosphere with little bright orange pellets of liquid iron rain raining down on me. It's really cool to think about. And you know, maybe it's not a pitch black atmosphere at the level of atmosphere where there's liquid iron pouring down on you. Maybe it's so close to the sun that light is able to permeate those kind of pressures. And I would imagine that the atmosphere, the type of atmosphere that would support liquid iron rain, is fairly dense, so to speak. You know, when you think about and imagine yourself on other planets, you know, when you imagine yourself on Pluto, so to speak, oh, am I calling it a planet? Am I being controversial calling Pluto a planet? I'm going to call it a planet, dang it. When you imagine yourself on Pluto, we know that Pluto doesn't have much of an atmosphere. It's not that massive of a planet. There can't be that much gravity. There's nothing much there to hold much of an atmosphere on Pluto. So we know that basically when you're on the surface of Pluto, you're more or less just being exposed to all of the radiation and temperature fluctuations of space, whether it be cold when it's facing away from the sun. We know it's going to be cold facing away from the sun, whether it warms up quite a bit when it does face the sun, how much you could be, you know, boiling away in the sunlight. That's what happens on the moon. You could be boiling away in the sunlight, but then as soon as you find a shadow under a boulder, it's negative 200 degrees or whatever it is out there in space, Fahrenheit. So there's different extremes, different things to imagine and consider. That's why it's a good thought exercise. If I was on the moon, what would I be dealing with? If I was on WASP-76b with liquid iron rain, if I was flying around in the atmosphere, up on a pedestal in the atmosphere, what would I be dealing with? One of the things you would be dealing with if it's liquid iron rain is intense pressures. So you can most closely relate that to deep sea exploration. So going to the depths of the Marianas Trench is something like 36,000 feet below the surface of the ocean. The intense pressures, doing everything it can to crush whatever vessel you're in. I kind of want can we get morbid for this a little bit? Morbid. Maybe we don't have to use a human being for this. and I don't even know how it would be possible to do this, but let's say we take, it would have to be something organic. I'm sorry to say, it would have to be a dead pig or something that has sacrificed its life for science. It's already dead. It doesn't need to be alive. But let's say we have a full-grown pig, and you bring it down in the vessel to the bottom of the Marianas Trench, 36,000 or so feet below the surface of the ocean, where the pressures are just unimaginable. And if there's a way to like put a release valve or something, open up the hood or whatever of whatever vessel is containing the pig, and just have it immediately exposed to those pressures, and just watch as the pig corpse just crushes like a, I don't know, like stomping on a Ziploc bag full of Kool-Aid. Oh gosh, but underwater. But that's what would happen. I know it's a morbid picture to paint, but that's what would happen if you were exposed, if the human body, if anything organic with air cavities and such that human bodies have, and mammals and all sorts of other animals have, when you expose that are used to one atmosphere of pressure, we're used to existing here on the surface of the planet, where our bodies have evolved and adapted to the pressures associated with living on the surface of the earth. When you go down, when it's many thousand times the atmospheric pressure down in the bottom of the Marianas Trench, in your body, every bone in your body collapses to its most dense possible form, and you just flatten out into this disgusting silly string of a human being down at and every fluid in you is now out of you. That's what we're dealing with. So when I say I would like to imagine visiting, WASP 76b, this exoplanet, and I would wish to be impervious to those destructive forces for obvious reasons, and just observe. We've tried to send probes to Venus and Mercury and other planets that experience in our own solar system. Jupiter is a good example. Jupiter, as you plunge through the atmosphere of Jupiter, the atmospheric pressure becomes so intense that probes cannot make it very far before they are just destroyed by the pressure of it all. So it's all we got for now for a while is, until we create better, more substantial spacecraft and probes that can withstand the pressure more. One of the best tools that scientists have, one of the best tools that we as geeks have, is just our mind, is just imagining what would it be like if we were there. Pluto, WASP 76b, Jupiter. I wonder what it would be like to stand on the surface of the Earth. You see what I did there? All right, let's move on. Maybe one more story before we get on to the big C word. You know what? Actually, that's it. We'll move on to the big C word, how coronavirus is affecting the industry and what that might mean for us as geeks. So one of the most major disruptions, and one of the most major concerns with the coronavirus, what it is actually doing, it's beyond concern. It's just a reality. What's happening right now is supply chains are being interrupted. For instance, Apple has put out releases to its, not to its suppliers, but to its stores, to its vendors, to its repair services, that they can't expect to get new OEM parts from Apple for weeks. So a lot of this, we are concerned with how coronavirus disrupts the supply chain, and how that impacts small manufacturers, impacts small OEMs, when obviously suppliers are going to favor the bigger companies first, so they're going to favor Apple first. And if the suppliers are telling Apple, hey, we cannot ship new components for iPhones, we can't ship new iPhones, we can't ship new repair parts for iPhones for weeks and weeks and weeks, they're telling that to Apple. Imagine what they're saying, or imagine the chance that small OEMs have. Maybe, you know what, maybe you are, since we're geeks about a lot of different things, maybe you're a geek about some sort of a niche area of technology, and you will have to deal with a smaller supplier. You're going to be hit harder. If Apple's being hit hard, the smaller suppliers and the smaller companies are going to be hit harder. To me, outside of, the risk of me getting coronavirus, and I know that I would survive coronavirus just fine, but if I gave it to my quadriplegic sister or my 97-year-old grandmother, that it would they would not weather that storm well. Let's just say there's a significantly higher chance that they would die from it. I know, me being 36 years old, I'm not going to die from coronavirus. But my 96-year-old grandmother, her quadriplegic sister, very well may. That would be the death knell for them. So that's one concern. And I'm not freaking out. I don't live my life in fear. I don't suggest anybody else lives their life in fear. I don't understand this rush on toilet paper. That's boggling my mind a little bit. Why? When? Apparently it came from some sort of social media post that misinformed the masses that most toilet paper is manufactured in China. That's not the case. Toilet paper is usually it's manufactured locally in your area or very close to you. China does not have a stranglehold on the toilet paper supply chain. So the side effect of this rush on toilet paper, I just think that, well, you know what? People are just going to have a stockpile of toilet paper for the next year or so. So anyway, that's kind of more local runs on stores that we're talking about there. IT departments, and I'll link to this. It's a fascinating article in Ars Technica where they had readers send them stories about how coronavirus is affecting their jobs and their operations. So think about IT departments. Some people who work for Lenovo or work closely with Lenovo say that Lenovo has said they're not anything that they don't have currently in stock right now will take 2 to 3 months to get new pieces of. So Lenovo computers are back ordered 2 to 3 months due to supply chain interruptions due to coronavirus. Another thing to consider is travel bans, whether imposed by governments or by individual companies, means that in terms of IT issues and other such avenues that will require face-to-face or a human being in there with your machine to work on your machine, even employers conducting interviews to hire new people, maybe it has nothing to do with IT or tech, anything like that. They're conducting these interviews and trying to work on these matters remotely. Now you might think, well, a lot of stuff is done remotely now. That's not such a huge deal. It's nothing new to do things remotely, even remote interviews, Skype interviews. Well, it's a different thing when everybody's doing it. And let's say you're from a region where your data infrastructure can't support the extra load. If your business and every business within that section of the city or area or village or remote area is using up the bandwidth to conduct business remotely, that's going to cause bottlenecks and bandwidth issues and all sorts of headaches for businesses now being forced to conduct business remotely depending on the infrastructure of their data network. That's another. So travel bans and travel restrictions, that's putting a load on areas of the world that are forced to go remote, forced to rely on the internet, forced to rely on data transmission. It's putting a load on those systems. That's just another effect that coronavirus, or at least the fear of coronavirus or the containment, however you want to look at it. I think it's personally a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. But it's fascinating and unfortunate to think about how getting ahead of this illness, getting ahead of this virus is going to affect business. And again, if you caught it earlier, if you've been paying attention to all this, we're not just talking about a couple of weeks. We're talking months. The NBA has canceled all games indefinitely right now. I have every reason to believe, as of recording this podcast, Major League Baseball is going to announce that they're going to postpone spring training and therefore postpone the start of the regular season. What else? What other? The NCAA, we're getting into March Madness and all the tournaments. I believe those have been canceled as of now, or they're going to be played without any crowds in the stadium. The NFL is considering what it's going to do. We're talking months out, not just weeks, not just days. The fear of coronavirus, or just getting ahead of coronavirus, however you want to look at it, is going to affect the global economy and the way we live life for the next few months. Now, I'm not saying that as any sort of scare tactics or that anybody should be worried. You know what? As I drive back and forth, to and from work, there's less people driving around because a lot of businesses have said, hey, you can do your work from home. My wife is about to do work from home. The church saying, if you don't need to be here, you just stay home. A lot of companies are doing that. So I'm enjoying driving to work. Pretty much, it's lighter traffic. Here in Houston, I won't say all traffic is eliminated, but it's much lighter. I've got what we need at home. Society's not going to collapse from this. Absolutely not. That's not what's going to happen. We'll weather the storm. We've weathered worse storms here in the United States and elsewhere in the world. This is just a hiccup. We're just going to have to deal with it. It's just unfortunate that, we're going through this right now. But don't live in fear of this. It's funny that you hear all of the health officials, basically their recommendations are, hey, everyone, just if you don't need to be in a crowded place, then don't go to a crowded place and wash your hands and stop touching your face so much. That's the same thing you say any flu season. Wash your hands. Just don't transmit the flu or the cold to other people. Just do your part not to transmit any virus. And that's the same protocol for coronavirus, except they're extending it way out further, way more. They're officially canceling things. E3 is canceled. The rodeo here in Houston is canceled. All those sporting events are canceled. They're canceling. South by Southwest is canceled. They're canceling so many of these mass meetups. It's going to be interesting to see what they do for the Olympics. When you have competitors from all corners of the earth meeting in one small area, giving God knows what to each other, and then going back to their corners of the earth. I suspect that the Olympics, they're going to make some sort of unprecedented announcement about the Olympics coming up here soon. Very fascinating how this all works. So basically, going back to how it affects our geek things, I think coronavirus, the biggest way that coronavirus, COVID-19 affects our geek things is that it's going to affect supply chain. So if you want to get new parts for your RC car, a lot of that stuff comes from China. If you want to get new parts for your airplane, if you want to get new even brushes for your art supplies or paints or anything like that, we're going to experience some interruptions. So basically, be happy for now with what we've got. I've mentioned earlier that I am saving up for a new computer build. I would like to build a computer on AMD 3950X. 16-core, 32-thread processor. I'm not going to go into detail about that right here. I've gone into detail plenty in past episodes of Geek Therapy Radio. But basically, I haven't saved up nearly enough money for it yet, but I think I'm going to have to probably wait another year or two and work back around because the price of RAM is already in a shortage. I've talked about that before. So you're talking about shortages or high increased demand on solid state technology, solid state memory, solid state storage. Already about to jack up the prices. Couple that with supply chain interruptions. While late 2019 was arguably the best time in recent memory to build a new computer, I think the next year or so is going to be, conversely, it's going to be a terrible time to build a new PC because of all the supply chain interruptions and coupled with the increased demand on components. So I guess the moral of this, and we'll start wrapping it up here. I guess the moral of this, my only opinion, my only advice, should you choose to consider it, it's just my own unsolicited advice to you, is again, be happy with what we got. Maybe in a roundabout way. Here's a bright silver lining to it. Since we can't get new supplies for our current, geek things possibly, that means we might be forced to look elsewhere to get our geek fix. I keep, whether I'm tinkering with computers and old, Pentium 3 computers, and I come back around to cassette tapes, and maybe I'm going to work on other things, telescope. You may have other things laying around that maybe you have a hobby that you haven't got to in a while. And now through supply chain interruptions or interruptions from coronavirus, you may be able to get to come back around to a hobby that you forgot about for a while. So I think that's one kind of possible silver lining to all this is you may discover new things or rekindle old things. In Geek Therapy Radio, I say we're all geeks about something, and I'm trying to help you rekindle, discover new hobbies or rekindle old ones. I think some fallout from coronavirus is that a lot of us are going to rekindle some old hobbies. Dust off our old Commodore 64 and try to fix that the way we can or get that going again and discover that we really love 8-bit computing again. That's just one for example. I think a lot of us through this coronavirus scare in the way the world is dealing with it, we're going to discover a lot of old hobbies. We might go out there and ride a bike again. When's the last time you rode a bike? For those of you who used to like riding bikes, hey, maybe you work remotely and your boss said just everyone's working from home now. Pump up your bike tires or dust off your rollerblades or something. I wonder how many people are going to get injured at home now, messing around with stuff. Oh man, that wobbly fan really has been bugging me for the past year. And now I'm working from home, so I might as well go ahead and take care of that. I fell off the ladder. Fan blade hit me in the side of the head. I wonder how many people are going to get hurt. And then they're going to try to go to the hospital, but they can't get a room because someone with coronavirus is in there in quarantine. It's going to be interesting going forward, but I'm just telling you, please, it's not the end of the world, okay? Please don't be scared into hysteria over this. It's not the end of the world. We will get through this. We're nipping this in the bud. That's what's happening right now. All this disruption and temporary inconvenience, it's just to nip this thing in the bud before it spreads more. So it's going to be uncomfortable for the next few months or so, but we'll come through the other side. They'll have a vaccine for coronavirus. It'll be in the next flu shots that you get next year. We'll get through this. We always do get through things like this, so don't go to sleep in fear. Don't fearmonger. Don't be posting things on social media to get other people scared. Do your part to keep people calm and keep people real and grounded in reality. Encourage your friends to rediscover their geek things or rekindle their hobbies or do whatever that helps them pass the time as we get through this. Kind of maybe think of this as a little bit of a break. Hey, one of the best things that happens to adults is when social obligations fall through. When you get a text or a call, hey, that party, it's canceled. And you're just like, yes, I don't have to put on pants today. Well, with coronavirus, a lot of us don't have to put on pants for the next few months. Thank you for listening to the Geek Therapy. What a weird way to end it. Thank you for listening to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast. I've been your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger. Know that we're all geeks about something. Embrace your inner geek. Find a new hobby. Rekindle an old hobby. But most of all, know that you are worthy of love, both giving and receiving love, and you are worthy of your own self-respect. Maybe through all this coronavirus stuff, you have time to rekindle an old hobby. You'll remember, hey, I was actually good at something. Hey, I am actually good at something, and it'll rekindle some of your own self-respect and quell some of those self-doubts. But at any rate, thank you for listening to Geek Therapy Radio. I'll see you really soon in the next one. Take care.